Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin sitting just beneath 109K, and now the US wants to sanction El Salvador for buying too much of it? Okay. Dubai's biggest airline just greenlit crypto payments because apparently meme coin millionaires fly first class now. Legacy media still thinks Bitcoin is for cyber criminals and tech bros named Chad. And Eric Sandler joins us on today's show to talk about Bitcoin Treasury companies, all that and more right now. Let's go! Good morning, my digital degenerates, Bitcoin believers, and everyone who still insists their NFT of a flamingo in a hoodie is part of a long-term vision. I'm Hank Hudson, broadcasting live from San Francisco, where the rent is high, the streets are lawless, and your Uber driver is a robot named Waymo. It's Wednesday, which means morale is low, caffeine is high, and somewhere a former Goldman analyst is panic launching a token called Taylor Swift Fi. Now, markets are twitchy, politicians are panicking, and a Layer 2 founder just blamed his rug pull on quantum uncoupling. Before we dive into this morning's cluster of headlines and act like we understand what modular blockchains are, do me and yourself a favor, smash that like button like it's a DAO proposal titled Community Yoga on the Moon, and follow RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV on whatever platform your dopamine-addicted thumbs land on next. Now, whether you're streaming this from a Lambo you definitely leased, shed wired for Starlink, or a co-working space that smells like ambition and ramen, top off your lukewarm oat milk latte, cancel your 9:30 Zoom, and let's roll through the digital dumpster fire that we call Wednesday in Web3. But before we do, let's take a peek at this morning's market rundown. Let's go. All right, is today the day I can afford a Lambo? No, it's not, but we're getting slightly closer. Okay, right now, how are things looking? Bitcoin, feeling pretty good, hovering right around that 109K mark. We're still waiting, wishing, watching for that big breakout past 112. Will it be coming this week? I don't know. We'll talk about it in just a bit. Ethereum having a nice little pump, up 1% this morning, sitting around $2,650-ish. Waiting for some movement there. We've been stuck around that $2,500 mark forever. So we'll see how things keep going. XRP at about 237 this morning, up nearly 3% on the day. Cardano is also up about 3%, right around that 60 cents mark. And Dogecoin even getting in on the action, up nearly 1.5% this morning, right around 17 cents a coin. In TradFi, let's see how the gods are treating us, and a lot of green, not bad. Dow Jones is up a little bit this morning, sitting a little over 44,000. The Nasdaq Composite up almost a 0.5 percentage point this morning, right around 20,500. The S&P is also up a little bit today, right around $6,200. MicroStrategy, they're up $3.50 this morning. Coinbase is up 6.5. Tesla down about $3, still sitting below that 300 mark. We crept up back around the 350s. Recently, I don't think the public has loved all the things Elon's coming out and saying, and the market has responded negatively. Nvidia is up almost 2%, a little over 2% this morning, and GameStop, last but not least, sitting right around $22, $23. We're going to take a quick break, but when we're back, we're going to be joined by one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Luca Pagano, our resident chart shark and crypto wunderkind, who's going to help us make sense of all this market madness. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Luca and more.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Oh, it's beautiful, Hank. This is not financial advice.
All right, welcome back. It's time for Chart Talk with Luca, the man who knows how to read the tea leaves in the market. Luca, happy Wednesday. Always great to have you back.
Hey Hank, how is it going? It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, but I'm happy you're here because I need to know what in the wild world of sports is going on in the market right now. Bitcoin's been kind of hovering around that 108, 109 range.
Yeah.
I remember last week you said if we closed around that last week, we could see some upside. I think we're all wondering, when do you think it's coming?
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good description. Honestly, we're, as I'd like to say, we're coiling. One thing I noticed here in the market, Hank, and I think it's pretty important for us to understand, and I think it's a great example of how we should look at the charts as a full combination of things and not just one thing. Is we're definitely breaking up in terms of the bull flag that we identified last week, but we cannot leave the fact that we are breaking on very low volume, and I think that is very important for us to talk, because as I love to see the charts as a whole and not just patterns, or not just macro zones or whatever. It's, for me, the most data, it's what gets you probably nearest to the truth in that sense. So I think we're seeing a potential sort of fake out. I hate to say it honestly, but if I don't see volume coming here in terms of today, tomorrow, I honestly don't see the market running very quickly right now. We should have a push. I mean, we're at resistance, which that is pretty good in terms of we're absorbing asks in the market. We always need to understand that supply and demand are basically bids and asks by investors, traders, and people like us. So if you're too much in one area, well, the opportunity to break it is probably each time easier, because there are less asks in terms of our resistance. But it is also true that you should not wait and wiggle too much, because then the beauty of the breakout sort of fades in that sense. So for me today, honestly, it's not an easy day to look at the charts in terms of feelings, because I have mixed feelings. On the structural side, we look very good. On the momentum side, volume coming lower and lower each day, and us being in a so important level gives me some kind of a weird vibe. I don't know if I'm clear on what I'm saying, Hank.
So the low volume right now is kind of making you feel a little suspicious about what could happen going forward. We've been kind of hanging around 109, maybe expecting that next leg up to new all-time highs, but it sounds like there's not a ton of buying pressure right now. So does that mean with the low volume, any big moves could make the market react in kind of an extreme way, or could you kind of go into a little more detail with what that means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty well. For me, some good comparison is right here when we had remember we were kind of wiggling here. This looked like getting out of the zone here, but look at the volume. Pretty
Yeah, it's
low,
low.
and you don't want to see that when you're on a photo up momentum side, and then you got the squeeze down, or the long liquidations, which let you have another push. So for me, being here, to be clear, with the people that are looking at us, and just try to take the most value out of a chart, is, I mean, I see this general movement, just to be clear, as very bullish, in terms of, this is what actual, bullishness comes from. We have this push. If we mark it out in Fibonacci, Hank, just to be clear with you, we have this first big push, then we have this good correction, and if we just mark the support and resistances, we should be heading to, say, $135,000 given the push correction, and if we can push again. The thing is this the push we're expecting? Because that's about structure now. Now, about momentum, what you want to see in a case where longs got effectively liquidated for me, I would have loved to see here even more volume when longs got liquidated, because I think a great example is here, Hank. You see the amount of volume. The blue line we see here for everyone is basically the average rolling volume, right? So this was like 2 to 3 times the volume averaged, right? Now we have more. We had more than average volume on this bottom, but not quite so much, right? So we gotta be careful on that, and that adding up to that, the push is each time falling in volume activity. For me, that's not a great view, honestly. So, I mean, maybe this is not the time we break out. We see one more squeeze long shorts, and maybe we can continue. I mean, it's a little bit more of an uncertainty. What would give me honestly more bullish vibes, just to be clear, is if we can get up this, supply zone and start picking up in volume, duplicating the average volume. For me, that would be a great sign that we will be seeing new highs, but I'm not seeing that yet, honestly.
Interesting. Now, I know in the past we've talked about Bitcoin's, dominance in relation to altcoins.
Yeah.
Could the lack of volume right now maybe be attributed to our people jumping into the altcoin space? Or are we maybe at the precipice of this, altcoin season we've been talking about forever? Could that be the reason? Or are there probably a ton of factors at play right now?
I mean, definitely it looks much happier, much cozier on the altcoin side now, for some change, because altcoins have been having definitely a tough time against BTC. I think this week is looking great, honestly, on altcoins. This is the Bitcoin dominance chart. We're clearly losing momentum here, which is pretty good for seeking out a little bit more beta plays, right? And if we see Ethereum. For me, Ethereum is a great example of this, because you're definitely gaining momentum and entering again on this like high range zone. We still gotta be careful, honestly, because clearly we're not safe yet. If we see the weekly in Ethereum, I think it's pretty clear. These are typical high supply zones in that sense, but I mean, as we've seen, I think Ethereum, we nailed this bottom weekly, which was the lows that we kept for a long time on the long term, and if we can get up $2,800 more or less, I think Ethereum will be loved again by several investors, in that sense.
I'm sure there's a lot of ETH heads out there that are happy to hear it. Probably Vitalik's finally done playing with Mu Dang and getting down to business.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. Do you think maybe the lack of volume in Bitcoin right now could be attributed to the fact that I've been hearing a lot of recent reports that it seems like a lot of retail right now might be cashing out their Bitcoin or have cashed it out in recent weeks? That demand has been, affected by, there's a lot of the corporate treasuries that are buying that up. But is retail maybe cashing out their Bitcoin right now and starting to buy into things like ETH, seeking those higher alpha plays and what could be the alt season we've all been waiting for? Or what do you think the reason is for that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we've seen some, pain in terms of the altcoins over the last, couple weeks, months, etc. For me, I think this is a great representation, which is Ethereum, which of course was one of the most bear ones in terms of BTC denomination. If we see BTC, for example, here, Hank, we're basically coming out of the all-time almost lows. That's why we were so bullish in Ethereum when we got to this area. We pretty much nailed the bounce. But what you want to see if you're seeing an altcoin sort of a mini cycle or season or whatever would be, for me, Ethereum coming back up this gray area, which was definitely the highest supply or demand zones in the last couple of years. So this would, for me, this tells you, hey, we're back at it again in terms of altcoins in general, and maybe it's time for BTC to chill a little bit, to keep on the low volume on that sense. If we see Bitcoin, I mean, for me, it looks great, honestly, in terms of structure, but I'm not seeing too much momentum. I mean, this is why I would love to, see what will happen on the following days, because definitely if the following days are not, sort of high volatility candles onto the upside, for me, we're losing a bit of momentum, and we will continue to see that on the following months. That's why for me it's
Yeah,
very
no.
important. I mean, we pretty much I had this old drawing. We pretty much nailed the movement, but right now I'm not too comfortable on the low momentum side of stuff.
Okay, now I know we got to let you go in here in a second, Luca. Before we do, though, 30 seconds. What should we be looking out for in the charts right now if we're to see Bitcoin make a big break by like the end of this week or the weekend?
Awesome. I always love that question. For me, what I would look for is basically if we can get momentum up the $110,000 with volume, I would be very comfortable breaking all-time high. But for me right now, if we don't see that, we're most definitely gonna retrace a little bit on the next day. So let's just be cautious on that, and hope for some spiking on momentum and volume.
Perfect. You guys heard it from the chart shark himself. We're looking for 110 with volume by the end of the week. Luca, we got to let you go. Before we do, if people want more of your chart analysis, where can we send them?
Yeah, well, let's keep updated. Look at Roxom on Twitter, and let's keep the analysis going. We'll see you. We'll see together on Friday the analysis of what follows. Hank, thank you for having me.
Perfect. You're the best. Always a pleasure,
Bye-bye.
Luca. Thank you. All right, we taking a break, guys? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got Anton from Xapo Bank joining us to talk about some of the top stories of the day. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more blockchain. Welcome back. It's time for this morning's bull run where we go over the top stories of the day. We got a lot of them. Let's get started, shall we? First up, 3 U.S. senators have decided that Bitcoin in El Salvador is somehow now a national security threat. Democrats Chris Van Hollen, Tim Kaine, and Alex Padilla introduced the El Salvador Accountability Act of 2025, a bill that would slap sanctions on El Salvador's President Bukele and his inner circle for alleged human rights abuses and for daring to hold over 6,000 Bitcoin. That's over $660 million worth of problematic decentralization, apparently. Van Hollen claims the Trump administration colluded with Bukele's government to deport suspected gang members straight into El Salvador's infamous mega prison, CCOT, which sounds like the setting of a Call of Duty level, not a sovereign nation's correctional facility. Now, this bill aims to freeze assets, ban visas, and block access to U.S. financial systems for Bukele and other top officials. It also calls for a full investigation into whether El Salvador's Bitcoin holdings are being used to skirt international sanctions. So let's recap it here. The U.S. has no problem sending taxpayer money to questionable foreign governments, but when a country buys Bitcoin and locks people up in a prison that looks like Arkham Asylum, it's suddenly a human rights crisis. Senator Kaine said that President Bukele may think he has a friend in President Trump, but Americans will not tolerate his efforts to undermine the rule of law. Woo-wee! That's some classic bipartisan theater, if I ever heard it. Now, while the bill claims to champion democracy and human rights, let's not kid ourselves here, gang. This is about control, and Bukele's Bitcoin stack is now too big to ignore. El Salvador currently holds the 6th largest national Bitcoin reserve on Earth, behind only the US, China, UK, Ukraine, and Bhutan. If this bill gains traction, we'll be watching the first real case of international sanctions being wielded over sovereign Bitcoin holdings, which would be wildly bullish, I'm not going to lie. But if governments are this scared of a little digital gold, maybe it's time everyone gets a little allocation before the real crackdown begins. All right, next up, joining us in the studio this morning, a longtime friend of the show, we got Anton from Xapo Bank coming on in. Anton, how are you this morning? Great to have you back on the show.
Hello, Hank. I'm excited to be back. I missed you, but I also watched you every day.
Oh, man, after my own heart. And I know you've had some exciting news, as I believe you are now the proud father of one of the world's youngest Bitcoin holders. Is that true?
It's absolutely true. I have a son, and he was born as a Bitcoin holder, which is crazy, isn't it?
That's incredible, and congratulations to you and yours. That's amazing news. We've got a lot to talk about today, so how about we jump into this first story, and I'll come right back with you in a second. We'll chat about it. Sound good?
Perfect.
All right, let's rock and roll. Next up, Dubai's crown jewel airline, Emirates, is officially boarding the Bitcoin bandwagon. The airline announced it's partnering with Crypto.com. Yeah, the one with Matt Damon in a stadium they'd rather we forget, to start accepting crypto payments for flights and services next year, which means you'll finally be able to book a first-class seat using the same wallet you used to buy a dog-themed coin at 2 a.m. Welcome to the future. The deal is part of a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, which is corporate speak for we pinky swear to make this happen unless something explodes. Now, if this pans out, Emirates will integrate Crypto.com Pay into their global payment systems, letting customers pay for flights, upgrades, and maybe that sad $19 sandwich in the airport lounge with digital assets. Deputy President Adnan Kazim said the move aligns with Dubai's goal of leading the financial future and also, reaching tech-savvy customers. Or in other words, Gen Z is broken fiat but rich in meme coins. Crypto.com COO Eric Anziani called it a major milestone for digital asset adoption, which is also what they said about their last token listing before it tanked 80%. Ooh. Still, if this goes through, Emirates becomes the latest mega brand to embrace crypto payments, joining everything from luxury real estate to phone bills. It's a bold move in an industry that still charges $75 to check a bag and $200 to change a typo in your last name. But hey, if paying in Bitcoin gets us one step closer to skipping TSA and flying in peace, that's bullish, guys. Very bullish. We're bringing Anton back. Anton, as someone at the forefront of Bitcoin banking, what's your reaction to a legacy brand like Emirates opening the door to crypto payments? Is this a gimmick or a genuine step forward? What do you think?
I start from there that actually I'm a Dubai resident. I have a golden visa in UAE. And actually, I'm very aware what's happening in Dubai in terms of crypto policies and how Dubai is trying to position as the leading crypto hub in the entire world, not only in Asia. They're targeting the entire world. So what's happening on Emirates, and I want to be very clear here, they're accepting Bitcoin, but they're auto converting almost on the fly to US dollars. So it's very interesting that we have airlines that are accepting crypto and they're converting to USD. And then right now we have Bitcoin Treasury companies that actually are raising USD to buy Bitcoin. I'm very curious to figure it out which is going to be the first company in the world to accept Bitcoin and keep it as a treasury asset. I think this will be a big game changer. But other than that, in Dubai, you can buy pretty much everything with Bitcoin, or even with some stable coins, and it's absolutely amazing how they're envisioning, and they were envisioning since 2018 how the crypto payments will be preferred way to transact money internationally, and they positioned perfectly. And I see that they're not stepping back; they're just moving forward on that direction, which is crazy. And that's the reason why I decided to get a golden visa there.
Amazing. I mean, we're really seeing the financial future evolve before our eyes right now. And you deal with high net worth clients at Xapo all the time. Do you think this kind of move will actually drive adoption among affluent flyers? Or is this more about gaining ground with Gen Z?
No, it will definitely gain adoption because what's happening right now, you have a fully regulated bank like Xapo, which is offering a Bitcoin wallet. You can, if you want, you can deposit US dollars, you can buy Bitcoin, and then you can use this Bitcoin to pay for some services, like, for example, buying an airline ticket, which it was impossible a few years ago, but now that's the reality. And what we are seeing is that we have more and more people that are completely refusing to live on the fiat standard. Those are the so-called hard Bitcoin maxis, which are measuring everything in Bitcoin. They're seeing world in orange. Everything for them is Bitcoin, and they're completely rejecting using US dollars or any fiat currency. And for them, this is perfect. Like they can keep their Bitcoin secured. They can in Zappo they can receive interest yield. They can even borrow against their Bitcoin, and then they can use it. With this example, in Emirates, it's great because you can immediately purchase airline tickets. And we're seeing more and more, by the way, companies accepting Bitcoin. Emirates is just one example. It's hitting the headlines because it's one of the most popular airline companies in the world, but this is just one of many.
Yeah, it just seems like this is another domino falling in the Bitcoin adoption domino conga that we're seeing here. So it's definitely big news. And assuming this memorandum of understanding actually becomes a reality, what kind of back-end infrastructure does a move like this actually require? And like, what are the risks they'll likely face integrating Bitcoin at scale?
So Hank, it really depends what the companies want to do with the Bitcoin. So far, we are early, and what Emirates is doing, they're auto converting their Bitcoin to US dollars. If this is what the companies want to do, it's requiring a little bit more infrastructure. But if we have a company which is willing to accept Bitcoin and then put it on their treasury or just keep it because the Bitcoin is appreciating over 16% this year, and it's outperforming S&P 500 by huge percentage. This is not requiring a lot of infrastructure. It's just requiring either a cold storage or just a reliable partner which you can trust to keep the Bitcoin that you receive there. So it may sound like a lot of infrastructure, but actually it's not that complicated. And there are plenty of companies that are offering this, and there are plenty of regulated banks which can support. And then we have Zappo in the middle, which is fully regulated bank, allowing Bitcoin storage and also Bitcoin exchange. So it's where we are.
We love you guys. You're the best. Only place to bank your Bitcoin. We know it. And when we're talking about payments, though, we got to talk about fees. Do you see Bitcoin Lightning or maybe stable coins as a more practical for transactions like airline tickets, or are we still a little early for both right now?
Actually, we're not early. I don't know if you remember, Zappo was the first regulated bank in the world to offer Lightning network transactions. And then within 12 months, 23% of all Bitcoin transactions that we processed, they were processed on top of Lightning network. So we see more and more Lightning network adoption. And we are seeing that Lightning network is much cheaper and much more convenient for our customers and overall for Bitcoins around the world to move funds. But it's related now. We are facing the issue about the trust. Most of the Lightning Network wallets are not self-custodial, so you are required to trust actually that your Bitcoin is safe. I see some very nice changes from popular Lightning Network infrastructure companies offering a solution to have convenient, seamless Lightning Network experience while you're responsible to self-custody your Bitcoin on the Lightning wallet. I think this is going to be a deal breaker where we're going to see the Lightning Network adoption explode even in 2025. In terms of stablecoins are serving different purpose. So the people who are going to buy airline ticket with Bitcoin, they're not going to use stablecoins. But people who want to use stablecoins, probably they're not going to use Bitcoin to buy airline tickets. So it really depends which type of customers you want to target. And I see Emirates, because they have unique in UAE, they have this unique national vision 2031, where they're putting the blockchain as a core of their strategy to become industry leader in technology. I think Bitcoin is the logical steps for them.
Yeah, that makes sense, and we certainly appreciate your insight and clarification on that. And Anton, if Emirates starts accepting Bitcoin, which major global company or industry do you think is next? And who should we want to be next if we in fact want to see real-world utility catch on?
What I wish we can achieve is to make the Bitcoin as close as possible for people for daily for their daily usage or daily purposes. Because how often are you buying an airplane ticket? It's not happening every day. But what are you doing every day is to go to the grocery store and you purchase some groceries. You go, you buy a coffee. So I can envision a world where you can go to Starbucks and buy a coffee with Bitcoin, or you can go to your favorite grocery store, go to Walmart and pay with Bitcoin. That's where we can expect huge adoption Bitcoin payments.
Yeah, that makes sense. I need to start hollering at Howard Schultz some more and tell him to get Starbucks on the whole Bitcoin bandwagon. It's only a matter of time, so better sooner than later. Anton, hang tight. We're going to go to the next story. I'm going to bring you right back because a new survey reveals something you already knew, which is that most mainstream media outlets just still don't get Bitcoin. Bitcoin analysis firm Perception reviewed over 1,100 Bitcoin-related articles from 18 major news outlets in quarter two. Here is what they found out. Only 31% of stories were positive, 41% were neutral, and 28% were straight up negative. That wouldn't be as big of a deal if the outlets actually covered Bitcoin at all, though, but they really don't. The Wall Street Journal, 2 Bitcoin articles. The Financial Times, 11. The New York Times, also 11. Compare that to Forbes, that had 194 Bitcoin stories, CNBC had 141, and Fortune had 117. Or in other words, legacy media is either ignoring Bitcoin or still framing it like it's some cyber drug for basement-dwelling criminals. Meanwhile, those tuned into the finance world are already treating it like a legitimate macro asset. Now, this information asymmetry has some real consequences here, gang. Institutional investors who rely on old school media might miss the signals that the Bitcoin native crowd has been watching in real time. We're talking Treasury moves, ETF flows, and regulatory shifts. The report calls it an editorial blind spot risk. Or in other words, your portfolio manager might still be getting their crypto takes from an outlet that thinks FTX stands for File Transfer Exchange. So what is the big takeaway here? Well, the people who understand Bitcoin are already acting. The ones who don't, well, they'll get around to it in a few years, right around the time Bitcoin's price is 5 times higher, and they're writing articles like, is it too late to buy? We're bringing back Anton. Anton, you're in the trenches every day. Why do you think mainstream media still doesn't get Bitcoin even in 2025? Is it ignorance, bias, or something more systemic?
So Hank, I'm also thinking a lot on this topic, and I have two aspects here I want to highlight. The first one, the mainstream medias, they are posting what people cares about. So they care about impression, they care about people opening the article, reading, and eventually being more engaged with the media. So I think that we Bitcoin maxis are staying in like we're watching all day RoxomTV, we are staying on Twitter, and we are like in this Bitcoin bubble where we are seeing only Bitcoin related news. But for the average Joe, they are not really in this Bitcoin bubble yet. They are not orange pilled, and those people are still not considering Bitcoin as a real asset, as a real investment, and they're not understanding how Bitcoin is working. And yes, they're also not aware that since beginning of 2025, S&P is up 6.1%, while Bitcoin is up 16.3%. Massive outperformance of Bitcoin versus S&P 500. However, this is not communicated, and it's not communicated probably because people are not that able to understand how Bitcoin is working and what's the value of the Bitcoin. But then also there is another aspect which is equally important. I think the medias are, especially the legacy media, they're covering crypto stories, and this example of this, a good example, is the Genius Act, which passed the Senate, which is crazy. We have a crypto regulation which is passing the Senate in the United States, and this was covered by every single news outlet. So what I'm seeing is we are slowly starting to get more recognition on the crypto industry from those outlets. It's a good sign that they covered perfectly the Genius Act for the stablecoins, and I think this is a natural evolution that very soon they're going to start covering Bitcoin more and more, especially if the government decides to proceed further with the Bitcoin strategic reserve.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, we're at 6 digits right now. We have been for 2 months in terms of Bitcoin's price. At what point does Bitcoin become too big to ignore for mainstream media? Do we need to see $500,000 of Bitcoin for it to get the same coverage that traditional finance does? Like, do you think there's a number there? Or is it just going to be a very slow, steady adoption as we've kind of seen so far? Or is there like an inflection point? We reach 200,000 and everybody's back in on is in on Bitcoin. Like, what do you think that looks like?
So right now we're on trajectory where we have adoption, which is constantly growing. However, Hank, what if something goes wrong with the US dollar and people lose the trust in the US dollar, and then what alternatives do you have if you don't trust the US dollar? You're definitely not going to buy Russian rubles, or you're not going to go to Chinese currency. You have to find something alternative. And what's the best alternative to US dollar than Bitcoin? And if we enter this stage where people recognize Bitcoin as an alternative to US dollar for keeping their wealth and protecting their wealth, then I think we're going to enter a hyper Bitcoinization area. And more and more medias will cover this, because it's like huge society change. So I think this can be the catalyst for seeing Bitcoin being covered on hourly basis, not even daily basis. But if this is not about to happen anytime soon, I think we are going to have this steady trajectory where Bitcoin adoption will grow and more news outlets are going to cover it. But I don't expect any other, or at least I cannot foresee any other scenario where tomorrow we are going to see Bitcoin everywhere.
Yeah. No, I agree. Unless Starbucks, Tesla, and a couple other giant companies come out and say they're all accepting Bitcoin payments tomorrow, it's probably going to be a slow and steady ascent like we've seen. But hey, slow and steady, as we know, wins the race. So I'm okay with that. The study in question also showed a huge gap between how traditional outlets like the New York Times cover Bitcoin versus like business media like CNBC. How does that skew public perception and investor behavior, you think, that there's this huge gap between these traditional outlets and then these more business media savvy outlets?
What I'm seeing is we have more and more requests from because Zap was established in 2013. We were the biggest Bitcoin custodian in the world, and we're receiving more and more requests from media outlets to comment something related to Bitcoin, some news related to Bitcoin, and from time to time I see those people that I'm talking with, they're a bit skeptical about Bitcoin. They're more like writing articles because they're supposed to write, instead of writing because they believe the Bitcoin will change the way the finance in the world are moving. But it's going to happen. It's a question of time, and we're seeing those Bitcoin specialized media outlets, like for example RoxomTV, growing so fast, and more people being engaged. And at some point, it's going to be too big to ignore. And I think this is the point of time where basically Bitcoin will be everywhere, every single newsletter.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it seems inevitable at this point, and it makes me wonder, when new clients come to you at Zappo, how much, if any, of your time is spent helping them unlearn some of these media narratives that they've absorbed over time from traditional media outlets that just don't seem to get Bitcoin yet? Do you find yourself doing a lot of re-education of these types of people, or are the people that come to Zappo already orange-pilled, they're full on the Bitcoin bandwagon already?
We have a lot of orange-pilled members that are joining Zappo Bank. However, yes, we have some very fresh Bitcoiners that are trying to understand what is Bitcoin. And actually, we are always saying you're in the right place. We are here since 2013, and we are probably the oldest Bitcoin custodian in the world. So we can really help you to understand the benefits of Bitcoin. And what we are seeing after our new members use the Zappo Bank services for a few weeks, they see that they can do pretty much everything with Bitcoin. They can buy Bitcoin, they can sell, they can pay with Lightning, they can also borrow against their Bitcoin and use it as a collateral, but also you can receive interest on top of your Bitcoin. And then suddenly those people realize that, okay, maybe I can bank with my Bitcoin, I can live on the Bitcoin standard. Do I really need fiat? So this is like the aha moment for them. but still the majority of people we are attracting are already orange pilled, and they know the benefits of Bitcoin, and they also understand the benefits of having a Zappo Bank account. But honestly, I'm very excited to see that we have people that are about to be orange pilled, and we are helping them to really reach this state where they see the world orange.
I know you are, and you guys do such a great job of keeping all of our precious Bitcoin safe and giving us the most up-to-date information and advice on how we should be banking our Bitcoin. So we certainly appreciate you and everyone at Zappo for that. Before we let you go, Anton, as always, if people are watching this show and they're like, man, Zappo Bank and Anton sound like they know what's up, I need to learn more about them, where can I send them?
We're doing our best to have a very, very well updated Twitter channel or X. You can also check our YouTube videos, and very frequently you can watch us on RoxomTV because we really love being here.
Oh, we certainly love having you. And another congrats to you and your youngest Bitcoin holder, maybe in the world right now. You might want to check with Guinness because you might have a world record on your hands.
I think I did a world record.
I love it. Anton, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we can't wait to have you back soon, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. All right, gang, in other news, Ego Death Capital, yeah, that is their real name. It's pretty badass. Just closed a $100 million fund to invest in companies building on Bitcoin. Not Ethereum, not Solana, not whatever layer 3 altcoins doing yield farming with cartoon frogs. Bitcoin, baby. Now this fund, too, is the VC firm, which first launched back in 2022 with a comparatively modest $25 million. Now they've quadrupled down because apparently betting on sound money is trending again. The firm's thesis is actually pretty simple. Bitcoin isn't a coin you flip, it's a foundation that you build on. General partner Lynn Alden said it best, saying, "We're investing in businesses that treat Bitcoin not as a trade, but as an infrastructure, something to build on, not bet on." Translation, they're here for the roads and plumbing, not the monkey JPEGs. Fund 2 will focus on leading Series A rounds with checks between $3 to $8 million, specifically targeting Bitcoin Layer 2 and infrastructure startups. That means projects like the Lightning Network, Fediment, and the increasingly buzzworthy discrete log contracts, which sounds kind of like something you'd sign in a spy movie, but is actually about programmable privacy. They've already deployed the capital into 3 companies: Relay, a Swiss Bitcoin brokerage, because apparently the Swiss want their neutrality and their sats; LN Markets, a derivatives trading platform built directly on Lightning for people who like speed and leverage; and Roxom, a global trading system on Bitcoin, and incidentally, the company behind the show that you're watching right now. So, yeah, this is technically sponsored content, and no, I'm not sorry. The bigger story here, though, gang, is the Bitcoin-focused VC is no longer a rounding error. It's real money backing real products. And finally getting the same kind of support Ethereum startups have been swimming in for years. And while the broader crypto VC space is still figuring out what to do now that Ponzi-nomics are out of fashion, Ego Death Capital is going full maximalist. Because when your name is Ego Death Capital, you don't hedge your bets. You laserize your soul and go all in on Bitcoin and build the future from the base layer up. And if that future includes lightning fast trades, decentralized privacy, and a financial system that doesn't collapse every decade, even better. All right, I think we're taking a break here, guys. When we come back, we got more news, and Eric Sumler from Sumler Scientific will be joining us very soon, so you won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. More Blockchain Report coming up. All right, welcome back. It's time for Whale Watch, as this is the part of the show where we tell you what the whales are up to so that you can keep an eye on those guys. They're trouble sometimes. All right, moving to camera 3 here. Let's take a peek. Victor, who do we got and what do we got? I think we got some of the world's super billionaires heading to the Sun Valley Conference in Idaho. It looks like some of the most powerful people in the world. There we go. We got Altman, we got Tim Cook. So the CEOs of Sun Valley Summer Camp for billionaires this year. Oh, I want to be invited. I can't afford it, but
yeah,
so
Hank,
what do you think they're doing there, Victor?
Yeah, this article even lists what they're wearing and everything. So let's take a look.
That's the important information.
Right.
I want to know what kind of polo that Tim Cook's rocking today.
Let's see
here.
Have some Altman. Okay.
Altman. Okay. Got those really cool
$400
glasses from
glasses.
Cisco. You like the glasses?
No, $400 glasses.
Oh, 400. That's not enough. You're a billionaire. Come on. Let's get some good ones. Sam Altman arrived wearing simple navy blue tee.
Tim Cook.
Tim Cook. Yeah, okay. All right.
No.
Pretty good company so far. Who else we got?
Sheryl Sandberg. She's former
Hale
Meta
Sandberg.
CEO.
Okay. Okay. Some former Meta representation. This is quite the who's who so far. What else we got here?
Andy Jassy.
Okay. Jassy. Also cool sunglasses. All right. Looks like Ringo Starr.
Doesn't say how much they cost. Maybe they're not.
Yeah.
Expensive.
They're expensive. They look expensive. They gotta be. They gotta be expensive.
Bob Iger.
Bob Iger. Okay. Disney. All right. Yeah, boy, this is quite the powwow. Boy, it gets me worried when all these billionaires get together.
The CEO of Rivian.
Rivian. Okay. I don't get the Rivian deal. I've seen the cars. They're okay. I don't think I'd ever get
Did I
one.
skip one? Oh yeah, Microsoft CEO.
Okay. Satya Nadella. I mean, quite the who's who. I assume Bitcoin will come up in conversation. You got enough billionaires in a room here. You got to talk about the financial revolution. That's interesting. Well, we'll keep you guys up to date when we get some more info into what is actually going on here. God can only imagine what is going on behind closed doors, which is kind of funny. This actually seems very similar to, there's a movie that came out recently, I think on Netflix with Steve Carell. I think it's called Mountainhead or something. And it's about a bunch of billionaires getting together. Maybe it was Apple.
Yeah, I think it
could have been Apple. Maybe it was Apple. But yeah, it's like a bunch of billionaires getting together, and then the stuff they talk about behind closed doors is wild. So that's pretty much what I expect this whole situation to be. Yikes. It was an interesting movie. I'm not sure I'd recommend it, but I like the premise.
Yeah. This guy's interesting. He's the CEO of Warner Bros. And they've had some financial difficulty recently. So Universal might. There's been rumors that Universal might buy them.
Oh, really? Disney's or Warner Brothers? Yeah, okay, as I say, they got some okay IP. Not as good as Disney, though.
Right.
Anyone else on this crazy list of?
Yeah, it keeps on going. There's a lot.
Boy. I even wonder if it's Altman or he just sent like a robot proxy that looks like it.
Yeah. No big like Bitcoiners that I see. But
okay, not yet at least.
Yeah.
I think Altman's too busy making everybody scan their eyes in that creepy orb thing that he has. That WorldCoin creeps me out. Okay, Netflix. Wow, quite the who's who. Well, we don't know if they're talking about Bitcoin, but if we get any word of that, we'll make sure to let our lovely audience know so you're staying informed. So, Victor, should we go to break? What do you think?
Let's go to break. Our guest is waiting to come in.
We're going to go to break, but when we come back very soon, we got Eric Sandler from Sandler Scientific here to chat with us about Bitcoin corporate strategies and everything else that you could possibly imagine, so you'll want to stay tuned. We'll have him, more and more stories coming up when we return. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to this morning's Bull Run. And boy, oh boy, do we got a special one for you today. Our guest started out writing headlines for the New York Times. Now he's making headlines by turning a medical device company into one of the biggest Bitcoin holders in America. He's a Harvard JD MBA, a former hedge fund shark, and the current chairman of Sandler Scientific, the Nasdaq-listed firm that went from testing arteries to stacking sats. With over 4,600 Bitcoin on the books and a roadmap to hit six-figure BTC holdings, he's given Michael Saylor a run for his money. Literally. Please give a big blockchain report welcome to today's guest, the man who traded stethoscopes for Satoshis, Eric Sandler. Eric, oh my God, they are loving it, Eric. We are so happy to have you here. How are you on this fine Wednesday?
I'm great. That was one of the craziest intros I've ever had. I loved it. Except for the part about the shark. I know about the shark.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, you're a man deserving of a good intro. And Eric, for those few people in our audience that might not know about you and your background, I mean, interesting stuff. Journalist, investor, now Bitcoin forward chairman of a public company. I mean, how do you usually describe what you do and how you got here?
I'm a utility player. No, I think
you are.
I'm just a really curious entrepreneur. I have a constant curiosity for things, and I'm extremely entrepreneurial, and I love to create value. I mean, I guess that's what I'm about. I look back on it, I didn't know that going in, but I'm a journalist who uses investigative skills to uncover great stories, find great stock ideas, great investments, and just it's driven by a ton of curiosity. And I'm motivated a lot by fear. Like I want to win badly. I feel I often look at things as an underdog and really just want to go that extra mile, extra effort to win. Just feel like you can never do enough to get to where you need to be.
Yeah, no, and it is like what I like to refer to as a Pete Crow Armstrong of the business and Bitcoin world. If you're a Cubs fan, he's our five-tool utility guy. Yeah. You, when we were talking off camera, have done something pretty interesting, which we just talked about on the show earlier, was you actually attended the Sun Valley Conference in Idaho in previous years. And I know you probably can't tell us a lot of what goes behind closed doors there, but what can you tell us about your experience with some of the most influential and powerful people in the world? That must have been wild to be behind those doors.
It was truly one of the greatest kind of annual events I've ever been to. I did it for almost 20 years. And I guess what stays in Sun Valley, what happens in Sun Valley stays in Sun Valley. So can't really get into all the ins and outs of it. But I've always had just a great relationship with Alan and company that hosts it. And they're amazing. And what they've pulled off is just one of a kind. They literally have the wealthiest, most successful people, most powerful people in the world begging for an invite. And I was fortunate early in my career in the early 2000s, they didn't invite a lot of investors. They invite mostly corporate people and, people that are influential in the world, politics and in other areas. And they invited a handful of investors. They chose me. I was shocked when they invited me in 2001. I was really just basically a startup investment fund. And they called me into their office and said, Eric, I was shocked that they even called me into their office. They said, we'd like to invite you to Sun Valley. And my focus was on media. And at that time, like media was it was a media conference. It was like the top people in media, and the access to these people was incredible. And so I was shocked that they invited me because I literally wasn't running very much capital. I was new to the investment business, didn't have a great track record, or didn't have a track record, I should say. I was just brand new. And so they invited me, and they said to me, we think you're going to be really successful, and we want you to be part of this. And that's the kind of vision and foresight, I guess, that they have. It's incredible what they've done, and they're so good at finding people early in their trajectory. I remember seeing Jack Dorsey there when he had no facial hair. He looked like he was about 14 years old, and talking about his idea of Twitter. And Mark Zuckerberg when he could barely speak, and he would answer questions like with, I don't know, okay, yes, and Jeff Bezos and all these guys. And it was just amazing to see them evolve and develop. And what's cool about being there is everybody's with their families. So I had all my kids and my wife, and they would meet, the families of all these other people. And when you're in that environment in such a beautiful place like Sun Valley, everybody's chill. There's not like nobody's like snobby or kind of looking over your shoulder. Everybody's kind of like has let their guard down, and it's just a great way to meet people, to get to know them. And when you go year in and year out, like my kids would become friends with a lot of the these people's kids over the years. They would go on all these different activities, whitewater rafting, and play softball and things like that. So it was really cool, especially for my kids. It was like their summer camp every year, and it was just an awesome social experience. Yeah.
That sounds like it. And I got to ask, I mean, when you're at this place with some of the most well-known people in the world that are literally building things that affect all of humankind, are there any moments or people that you met there that really stand out to you looking back your years at the Sun Valley conference?
Yeah, there's been so many. I mean, the best one was just going for a walk with Steve Jobs, early in like the early 2000s. Steve I think maybe that was the only year he attended the conference that I was there in the 20 so years. He showed up, and I was just so excited to have the chance to talk to him. It's interesting at that time. My firm was one of the largest shareholders of Pixar. And Apple was really just coming out of its shell a little bit. Apple had just launched the iPod. They didn't have an iPhone at that point. And Apple was kind of a value stock, and most of its value was in cash. And they didn't really have any new products except for the iPod. So I was really more interested in Pixar. I was one of the few people that liked the stock. It was a very out of favor company. Most investors didn't want to touch it because it was like a company that made a movie every 18 months and didn't make any sense. And I thought it was just like a incredibly cool culture and would be a very successful company. I ended up being right about that. So I asked the people at Pixar, could I meet Steve Jobs when he's in Sun Valley? And they said, sure, but whatever you do, don't ask him any short-term questions. Don't ask him about the quarter. He hates that stuff. You got to just talk big picture, long-term. And I said, sure, that sounds great. I'm happy to do it. So when the conference rolled around, they said, meet him at noon at this spot. So at the lunch where people were having lunch. So I went up and I said, hey, Steve, it's Eric Semler, TCS Capital. I'm supposed to meet you now. He goes, what? He's like talking to all these big shots. And then he said, come back in a half hour. So I came back in a half hour. So I said, Steve, hey, it's Eric. You ready to talk? He's like, oh, geez, come back in 15 minutes. And I was just annoying him. So I finally come back. He says, okay, look, you want to go for a walk? I said, sure. So he takes me for a walk.
Amazing.
And he says to me, he goes, hey, look, I'm really sorry about Pixar's stock. It had just kind of blown up. They had a delay in one of their movies. It's never going to happen again. Don't sell your stock. You hold on to it. It's going to be great. Everything was kind of short-term oriented. And then he said, all that stuff they're saying about the iPod and the competition, it's bullshit. We're going to kill it. and he was so competitive. And it was great because, I was walking around and guys like, Michael Ovitz, who was a big shot agent that time, an investor in my fund, saw me talking to him, was like so impressed, And so Steve Jobs ended up just being he just didn't want to stop talking. We kept walking and walking for 45 minutes, and he just loved talking about stocks and his company and his products, and he just loved the fact that I was a shareholder and that I was so supportive. Like, you're on his team, he loves you, and he doesn't want to lose money for you, and he just wanted the best for you. And I just remember like being so surprised by that reaction from him.
Yeah, man. And it's nice to hear that he was someone who's really focused on the long-term vision. It makes me think that he would have been a Bitcoiner himself, because as you know, it's like if you're a Bitcoiner, you got to have that long-term vision. You're thinking in years and decades, not weeks and months. And it sounds like, the most successful people in every industry have that same kind of sentiment. So I really appreciate you sharing that story. That's so cool. Wow. Sure. Steve Jobs. Crazy. All right, Eric, we've got a lot to talk about today. I want to go over this first story really quick, and I am so excited to get your take on it. So I'm going to have you hang tight for just a second. We're going to bring you right back. Sound good?
Okay. Sounds great.
All right. Perfect. All right, our next story, Sandler Scientific, the Nasdaq-listed healthcare tech firm that's rapidly becoming a Treasury powerhouse, has added another $20 million in Bitcoin to its balance sheet. Between June 4th and July 2nd, Sandler picked up 187 more BTC at an average price of about $107K, bringing its total holdings to over 4,600 Bitcoin, acquired for around $430 million. Now, with Bitcoin trading higher, that stack is now worth about $502 million, giving them an unrealized gain of nearly 72 mil. Not bad for a company whose day job is revolutionizing medical diagnostics. And no, this isn't a one-time headline grab. Sandler's in this for the long haul. They've outlined a 3-year strategy to build one of the most significant corporate Bitcoin treasuries in the world. They're looking for 10,000 by the end of 2025, 42,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2026, and 105,000 by the end of 2027. That, my friends, is not a casual allocation, that's a strategic pivot. And Wall Street, well, they're finally catching up. Benchmark analysts launched coverage yesterday with a buy rating and a $101 price target, nearly a 150% upside. Maxim followed with their own buy and a $95 target. Benchmark's Mark Palmer praised Sandler's execution, transparency, and Bitcoin strategy, noting that its multiple of net asset value still trails peers like Metaplanet and the blockchain group, but that Sandler has a clear path to closing that gap. They're betting that a combination of continued Bitcoin accumulation, strong investor engagement, and smart moves like hiring Joe Burnett as director of Bitcoin strategy will position the company at the top of the Bitcoin Treasury leaderboard. Of course, there's some noise in the background, ongoing DOJ matters and Medicare reimbursement issues, but even Benchmark said that Sandler's core business isn't the story right now. The story is Bitcoin, and Sandler's not only leaning into it, they're leading. Their stock popped 8.5% to $42.28 on the news, and if Bitcoin hits Benchmark's projected $225,000 mark by 2026, as they modeled in their valuation, let's just say the upside math starts to get really, really fun. Eric, we're bringing you back. Your company just added another 20 million in Bitcoin to the balance sheet. What gave you the conviction to double down at this price point, especially when others are pausing or trimming?
I mean, it's a bargain. I mean, it is a true bargain. I've been an investor for my whole career pretty much, early stint at the New York Times in journalism, but I have to say that this is one of the really great opportunities to make exponential returns. It seems really, really well set up to have a big run, first of all. But it's trading at such a huge discount to gold when you have this huge institutional force of buying and demand, which to me is very logical. So I love the setup. I think that, there probably are some catalysts with the government and the Bitcoin strategic Bitcoin reserve and all the Bitcoin treasury companies buying Bitcoin. So I just think there's tremendous underlying bids for Bitcoin. I think that it has this great long-term upside when you compare it to gold. And at the longer, the more and more our company gets into the process of buying, we want to own more, we want to buy more. We're really not that price sensitive at these levels.
Yeah, and as Benchmark was noted in the story, it seems like Wall Street's starting to catch up with the old Bitcoin train, or slowly starting to onboard themselves. I mean, we have analysts there and at Maxim now rating Sandler as a buy and praising your Bitcoin strategy. What do you think finally clicked for them?
I think that it was just a matter of time. I think it was inevitable. I think that our business might be a little more complex because we have this medical business. We're not like a lot of the other Bitcoin treasury companies who are really starting from nothing essentially. And credit to them for creating, being able to do that. It's a great Houdini act. So I think that the best way to buy Bitcoin is with your operating cash flow. We do use an ATM. We have used convertible debt, but ultimately, where you're going to get the highest yield is using your company's cash flow. And we're dedicated to all of those options. But I think that they probably had to get up to speed on our medical business, which is the real operating business that they need to know and understand in order to cover us. So that's probably what took a little bit longer, but it's great. I love those price targets. I'd love to surpass them soon. So, but it's great to see that kind of support.
Yeah, and it seems like there's also been a lot of support for a recent move you had made at Sandler, which is bringing on Joe Burnett as the director of Bitcoin strategy. What's his role in helping Sandler reach these new targets, and how does having a dedicated strategist change your overall Bitcoin approach?
Well, what's crazy when you start out on this process, which we did it's only been a year. It seems like it's been longer than that. But you started, and it was really just me. I went to our board. I'm chairman of the board, but I went to my fellow board members and I said, look, I think this would be a great idea to put Bitcoin on our balance sheet. No one else had done it at that point except for MicroStrategy. So it was a very foreign, kind of out there proposal. And so when they agreed to do that, I kind of spearheaded that effort. And I didn't, really, to be honest with you, you don't know where how fast or how slow it's going to go, and how much Bitcoin you're going to own, and what are the demands of the job. I remember when I called Michael Saylor with this idea, he was overjoyed, but he also said, hey, do you have, make sure you have a Twitter account with a blue dot. And I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So like that shows you kind of how unprepared I was for, this journey. And so when we started, it was really just me. And then our CFO, Renee Cormier, became really instrumental in helping me, execute the strategy. But we got like 80 other employees who just work on medical stuff. Our CEO, is really running our medical business, and has, allowed me to kind of become executive chairman and to handle the Bitcoin. So it was clear to me after going through this for a period of time, and that our value really was really driven by Bitcoin and not by the medical business, that we needed to beef up our Bitcoin team. And it made a lot of sense to me to hire a director of Bitcoin strategy who can, communicate with the community, has already had the kind of this built-in connection that I did not have. And Joe seems like just a terrific connection. He's got a terrific following. People seem to really love him. I'm thrilled that he can do a lot of the podcasts instead of me and tell the story much better than me. And so like it's great having him. He's also just really helpful strategically. He's a strategic thinker. So we're just constantly kind of reviewing different ways where we could, different types of things to build, not just buy Bitcoin, but to build our connection with the community, to do things that are kind of consistent with what a good Bitcoin treasury company should do as it relates to Bitcoin. And it's not just about selling stock to buy Bitcoin. It's much more complex than that. And I think that's why Joe is going to be able to help us so much. He really just started a week ago, but he's already added a lot of value. And then we also added Natalie Brunel to our board, which has also just been fantastic.
Yeah, both huge moves to further ingratiate you and your company into the Bitcoin space.
Yeah.
Both really forward thinking. I love them.
Thank you.
And it leads me to my next question. Let's say, for instance, Benchmark's Bitcoin price target of 225K by 2026 plays out. What does that mean for Semler's market position, and how you think it changes the narrative around public companies holding Bitcoin on their balance books?
So I think that what it will mean. I think this is kind of how I look at it globally. Is I think scale is just critical, and getting to scale. And I don't know I don't know if there's an exact number where you tip the scale and you're at the scale. I mean, it's hard to know because and it's obviously increasing by the day. But I think scale is important for a few reasons. One is just owning a lot of Bitcoin gives you a lot of optionality in the future, whether it's, becoming a bank or, becoming this just, really, valuable holder of a massive amount of Bitcoin and all of the opportunities that creates. The second thing is that with scale, you just grow as a public company. Your market cap goes up a lot, and especially if Bitcoin goes up a lot. So we own $500 million of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up 50%, we'll be a multi-billion-dollar company, and that will enable us to be owned by these large institutions who can't own Bitcoin. I think this is such a critical part of this whole Bitcoin treasury strategy. There's not going to be enough scale Bitcoin treasury companies for all of the demand that's out there among institutional capital. I think Michael Saylor said the other day, 97% of institutional capital cannot buy commodities, cannot buy Bitcoin, can't buy the ETFs, and that's a $95 trillion market. So there's just this massive demand. And basically right now all they can own is strategy. And that's just not enough. That's just not enough product for them. So if they want to own Bitcoin, and I think a lot of them do have kind of this burning desire to own it and envy that they haven't been able to own strategy and it's done so well and it's probably headed to the S&P 500, that they need to find other ways to invest in equities in addition to strategy, and we want to be one of those companies. And so we're really on that glide path to get to that, kind of be a scaled public equity in Bitcoin. I think that's probably a $5 to $10 billion market cap that gets you there. I have, a lot of friends who run institutional capital, and that's kind of the guidance they've given me is, get to $5 or $6 billion market cap, and we'll be dying to own you guys. I can hear you guys. Okay.
Okay, guys, sorry about that. I don't know if it was the Y2K bug is back or a comment, or if I'll be honest, I thought for a second Kim Jong-un finally got us with the big one. I was counting my chickens there, but I think we're back. And Eric, I'm sorry about the delay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's good. I got a lot of emails done.
Eric, can you hear me? We get?
Yeah, I can hear you. I hear you guys.
I'm not hearing him? Working on it. Okay.
Okay.
Eric, can you hear me?
I can hear you. No.
My apologies for that. I don't know what it was. Literally, we're here and the entire studio went black, and I thought I was ready to meet my maker. So my apologies for that, but we're glad to still have you at least for a few more minutes. I was hoping we could take a quick deep dive into some of your background. You've had such an interesting professional career. Does that sound okay to you?
Whatever you want.
Amazing. Well, again, I appreciate your patience. I mean,
Sure.
You've had, Eric, a very interesting and diverse career. I mean, we're talking journalist at the New York Times to managing a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. Looking back, what drew you to all these different arenas? That's like quite the interesting path you've had so far.
It's funny. None of it was planned, like zero plan. I thought I would end up kind of working in the State Department of all things. It was always kind of my dream to kind of work, be work in Russia, as the ambassador to Russia. I mean, that was kind of my goal, or to be like the New York Times correspondent in Moscow. I was always just fascinated by Russia. And I worked at a Russian newspaper actually after I worked at the New York Times. But I was a Russian major, and I was just always fascinated by Russian history and culture, and somehow that led me to Bitcoin. I'm not sure how, but it went through finance. It's everything kind of just it's all kind of tied to wanting to kind of just be successful at whatever I do and just give everything I have, just never give up, really believing that, there's nothing you can't do, except maybe be a professional baseball player, which was really my ultimate dream.
Was that, yeah, because you actually do, I saw like an interesting, is it like, was it like a Bronx type baseball thing?
Yeah.
What is that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I played a little bit of baseball in college. I've always just been obsessed with baseball. And I grew up in Oregon where I had no team. So I moved. When I got married and moved to New York City and worked for the New York Times, I became kind of enmeshed in the Dominican baseball culture in New York through my kids. My kids were very good baseball players, and they played on a lot of the Dominican teams where the coaches only spoke Spanish, and there were mostly Dominican kids on those teams. I don't know if there were any other white kids on some of those teams. Sometimes there were.
So they were good.
They were good. And I was blown away by the talent. And naturally, my wife and I just got very close to the families in the Bronx that were, the parents. A lot of them had never gone to college, the kids were like first generation. And we met these people when our kids were like 6 and 7 years old. So like it was really early on. And what happened was when they got into high school, they became a lot of these players became outstanding talents, but weren't getting recruited by colleges because colleges just assumed that they didn't have the grades, and they weren't focused or oriented that way. So my wife and I decided to start a program to help them get into college, basically do SAT tutoring, help them with their college essays, and help them get recruited. So I got to know like a lot of the college baseball coaches around the country in the top programs, and it took a while. It's kind of like Bitcoin. You kind of have to institutionalize it, convince people that, there's this, it makes sense. And so I really worked the phones with the college baseball community, and we became a very highly regarded travel baseball program foundation to help Dominican kids in the Bronx. And we helped probably 250 kids get college baseball scholarships, free rides to college and they're the first in their families to go to college, and full ride. A lot of them went to top schools, top baseball programs, top, academic schools. And it was just it was a labor of love for 15 years. I'd be on the baseball field during the summer coaching these guys, and helping them as much as I could. I was kind of like a second parent to a lot of them. And I loved it. I loved being able to help people that way. And now we have some kids in the major leagues, which is cool.
Amazing. I was like, yeah, you're pretty much like fostering maybe the next like Aroldis Chapman or something. Are you like a Bronx Bomber guy then, or who's your squad?
I am a Bronx Bomber guy. I love the Yankees. Definitely inherited that from my wife. She's a big Yankees fan. She grew up in the Bronx, and so she's really
fair enough.
But I'm more of an underdog
It's a good
guy.
franchise to like.
I'm more of an underdog guy. Like I usually root for teams that are more at the bottom. So being a Yankees fan is unusual for me.
Yeah, well, I appreciate any fanfare you gave to my beloved Cubbies over the years.
Oh,
We're actually doing okay this year, but that's astray from the usual course for us.
I love the Cubs.
Eric, again, I'm so sorry about.
No problem.
Oh, they're the best stadium in the league for my dollar.
So
but I'm a little
by
biased.
far, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Eric, I'm so sorry again. We got our time interrupted today. You are such an interesting and multifaceted guy. We're going to have you back again sometime, and I'm going to make sure that pesky Y2K bug or comment or whatever is not included next time. In the meantime, though, I know there's plenty of people in our audience that are interested in learning more about you and Sandler Scientific. What's the best place for me to send them so they can get some more info on all the amazing things you guys are doing over there?
Thank you. We are doing amazing things. I'm really proud of what we're doing, both on the Bitcoin and medical side. I really am excited about our future. I think the best way is really to look at our website. We have a dashboard that shows a lot of metrics around our Bitcoin accumulation program. That's sandlerscientific.com in the investor relations area. We also have a lot of information about our medical business that you can look at as well, and it's helpful. Helped me a lot. And then, I'm on Twitter at Sandler Eric. You also have Joe Burnett and Natalie Brunel, who are also occasionally tweeting about us and describing what we're doing. So that should be
well, you're putting
a good place to
together
start.
Yeah, you're putting an all-star team over there together, and I can't tell you how excited we are watching from the sidelines and reporting all the amazing things you're doing to help promote the Orange Coin, and we certainly appreciate you and your time today. Thank you again for dropping in.
Thank you. It's great to see you. Take care.
Pleasure. Thank you. All right, guys, that is it for today's episode of the Blockchain Report. Again, we're sorry for the interruption. We're going to figure it out. We'll do better next time. Until tomorrow, stay safe, stay sovereign, and always remember to hodl on. We'll see you Thursday.